Welcome to the many interpretations of Rhamphorynchus. Rhamphorynchus was a pterosaur that lived in the late Jurassic of what is now Europe. And they're a very interesting little pterosaur. They especially have a very interesting looking skull with a series of needle-like teeth and a beak-like structure towards the front of the mouth. They're also relatively small and quite a bit different from most other pterosaurs that we've already looked at. I don't really have too much else to say, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Our first depiction comes from 1 million years BC, where we have a Rhamphorynchus that goes up against a pteranodon, a pterodactyloid versus a Rhamphorynchoid. You know, two types of pterosaur lineages kind of clashing, which is kind of cool, you know, when you really boil it down. This one already establishes a lot of things that we will be seeing a lot more going forward, such as those needle-like teeth, the kind of like elongated skull that was like a head that was relatively large for its body, which, I mean, it seems kind of small here, but also these large eyes. One thing that does seem to be missing is the beak-like structure towards the front of its mouth, especially one that kind of like hooks on the lower jaw. That doesn't seem to be present here, which is something that Rhamphorynchus did have. And of course, Rhamphorynchus would have had little pycnofibers, aka feathers, covering its body as well. But it's a fine start, you know, it kind of sets the standard, and we'll be seeing a lot of depictions that are pretty similar to this going forward. After that is when dinosaurs ruled the earth, and a lot of the same things still do apply, but it is oversized. The previous one was oversized too. Rhamphorynchus was a relatively small little fella, bigger than some of you might expect, but it was still relatively small, with the largest specimen that was found having a wingspan of around 1.8 meters or 5.9 feet. I will also mention that there was another type of Rhamphorynchoid that could possibly be Rhamphorynchus that was discovered that has a wingspan of around 3 meters or 9 feet 10 inches. But it's not really known if that is a Rhamphorynchus or not, so we won't really be using those estimations. Regardless, 5.9 feet seems to be the largest that we know of for Rhamphorynchus. Obviously, this fella is quite a bit larger than that. You know, it's got to be made to be more of a threat. And it also does have a long tail, which is something that Rhamphorynchus does have, with a little fan towards the end of the tail. Again, both things that Rhamphorynchus does indeed possess, or did indeed possess. So, pretty decent right there too. After that is Legend of Dinosaurs and Monster Birds. This one's skull is certainly interesting. You have the needle-like teeth right there. The head does seem a little bit shrink-wrapped. Like, you can see each individual little divot and everything. And once again, this fella is made to be oversized, quite a bit larger than the real-life Rhamphorynchus. But still, very cool. It's really interesting that so far, Rhamphorynchus being used is kind of like a nice little alternative to Pteranodon for a lot of these projects. It's like, yeah, here's one with very crazy looking teeth that angle forward too. I didn't mention that, but their teeth do angle forward to the front, which is very cool. Very, very cool. Next up is PBS the Dinosaurs. We have this fella right here that, honestly, it probably looks the most accurate so far. It's complete with the tail. The head looks pretty good. It's got the little needle-like teeth. It does have nostrils that are a little bit closer to the eyes, which is also true, and the eyes are overall larger. It does seem to have like the smaller size that Rhamphorynchus did possess in life. And all around, I think that this one is probably my favorite so far. The Land Before Time has two, like, henchmen Rhamphorynchuses. It's very cool to see these fellas in the Land Before Time style. They have some of the traits that we've come to expect from Rhamphorynchus, such as the long tail with the fan at the end, the needle-like teeth that are very reduced here, like they would have been larger in life, and the whole shape of the skull seems to match up pretty well as well. They also do seem to have like some transparent wings, which is very interesting. One cool thing about Rhamphorynchus is that we have like quite a few specimens, and some of those specimens have actually been so well preserved that you can still see the membrane, which is of course what makes up their wings in life. It's very cool stuff, and it gives us a very good insight of what this animal looked like when it was still alive, and you know, it's always very fun to mention that. Walking with Dinosaurs has this thing right here. Similar to the Neurognathus, this one is certainly an interesting little model right here. One thing that I could mention is that the head is proportionally, it seems like the head is proportionally too small. Rhamphorynchus did have like a larger head in proportion to the rest of its body. It also seems like its snout is reduced a little bit too much. Like it would have been a little bit more elongated. And of course, Rhamphorynchus would have been covered in fluff in life. All things that are lacking in this design. But it's a very good design. You know, the practical effect is very good, and I love the CGI that was used for these fellows. They also do have the little needle-like teeth that angle forward and the beak-like structure towards the front of its mouth. The shape of the snout seems to be pretty spot on as well, and they are portrayed eating fish. Rhamphorynchus was a fish-eating pterosaur. Its little needle-like teeth were perfect for catching, like, wiggling fish. Also, fish and cephalopods have been found in their gut contents, as well as in their coprolites, which, if you don't know what coprolites are, they're fossil feces. So, we know that they ate them, digested them, and then it turned into feces, and there's fish present. One other cool thing is that they do seem to have the proper skeletal adaptations to swim. So it's possible that they would kind of act like diving birds and kind of go into the water, swim around, and get fish that way, which is a very cool thought. SpongeBob has this fella. I don't know if it's Rhamphorynchus, but I wanted to include it. It has like the type of tail fan that I've talked about before. The tail's also long. I guess it has like little teeth and whatnot. I don't know if this is Rhamphorynchus per se, but I just wanted to include it. Look at it. Look at this thing. It kind of looks like a mixture of a lot of different things to make something that's a little bit more mythical, but the arms do look like pterosaur arms. Again, the tail makes me think of Rhamphorynchus. So we'll just call it Rhamphorynchus for now. It's a fun design, that's for sure. Dinosaur Train has this fella right here. I like the way that the snout looks. It seems to capture Rhamphorynchus' snout pretty well, at least in a stylized way. You also do see the teeth present here, and the overall colors are very fun. You have like yellow and sort of pink colors on the wings, as well as like a golden coloration that's more so on its face. The eyes are also large, and you do see like little fluff on top of its head, which is probably a hint at the fact that pterosaurs do have something like that in life. So yeah, this is a pretty decent one. It's, of course, stylized. I'll always mention that. This is a stylized show. It's not going to be 100% accurate, but it does have some aspects that are correct about it. Dinosaur Revolution has a really, really fun-looking fella right here. Again, with the yellow coloration, that's 2 for 2 in a row. 2 in a row that we have that. I love the way that the wings look, especially when it folds them. And the snout looks pretty decent as well. It's elongated, it has those teeth, and the beak-like structure towards the front. It also does have the large eyes. Rhamphorhynchus, I mentioned it a few times, but they do have large orbits, which implies that they had, the proper space for large eyes. I also really like the patterns on this one, especially on that membrane. It kind of breaks it up and kind of looks like butterfly wings in a strange sort of way. I think that it looks really cool, though. Like, I'm a huge fan of these colors, and its overall model is pretty decent. Of course, it kind of like, this show is very anthropomorphized with a lot of its animal depictions, and the same is true for the Rhamphorhynchus. But it's still a very cool depiction. I do quite like it. Someone in the Discord sent this one. We have Goofy right here. So, yeah, it's from one of the Mickey Mouse shows. It's Goofy Rhamphorhynchus type creature. Again, it does have the tail with the the sort of fan on the end, and it's just kind of goofyified. It even has teeth, except they're goofy teeth. And they kind of do angle forward though, which is cool. Cool little detail right there. If this is meant to be Rhamphorhynchus, of course. It's carrying Donald, so it's a kaiju-sized Rhamphorhynchus, but I think it's mostly Goofy that makes it like that. This is a fun one. Goofy's my favorite character out of all of the Disney characters, like the Mickey Mouse characters. There's also Aerodactyl from Pokemon. This one is likely just an amalgam of different types of pterosaurs and kind of like some aspects of dragon thrown in there. And also like some bat, or you can consider this dragon, as it does have sections in its wing. Of course, pterosaurs didn't really have sections in their wings, like bats do, or dragons do, really. So that's like the dragon element. The tail is very reminiscent to a Rhamphorhynchus tail, and it does have small teeth, which is also pretty similar to Rhamphorhynchus. The only difference is that, of course, the upper jaw lacks those teeth. But it's a Pokemon. This is not really meant to be any one creature. I just included it because there might be some inspiration taken from Rhamphorhynchus, and if there is, that's cool, but just decided to include it just to be on the safe side. So recently, Dinosauria Volume 2 released its first episode, and in the future, we see a Rhamphorhynchoid. It's not exactly Rhamphorhynchus. It's known as Clobiodon. This little fella, I wanted to include it because it looks gorgeous. I can't not include it. Look at it. Look at it. Dead Sound always kills it. By the way, go and watch Terrible Lizards. It's fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. But I love the blue on their snout and around their eyes, and the fact that their eyes are a little bit blue too. And the rest of the colors look really good. They have the proper fluff, and the tail looks really good as well. And they are also eating like some fish or some aquatic life in general, which is something that would match up for an animal like this. Structurally, they are very similar to Rhamphorhynchus, but they are not quite the same genus. But Dead Sound, as per usual, just knocked it out of the park with this one. I loved them when I saw them. I was like, oh, that's beautiful. I also love the curve of their snout too. It's just really cool. I love it. We'll move on to the video games. First and foremost, the Jurassic franchise video games like Jurassic Park 3 Park Builder. Can't really see much of it, but it seems to have a lot of the traits that we've been talking about, like a relatively large head compared to the body, very thin neck. It probably would have been a little bit more beefy than that. At least when you incorporate like the fluff onto it. The tail is also present, and yeah, it's a very typical pterosaur design, especially for the time. Jurassic World, the game, has this fella right here that I love the way that its teeth look. Like, look at that. It looks like a delightful little fella that you would just love to talk to. You know, I don't know what it is. So I like that little aspect of it. I think it's very fun. And Jurassic World Primal Ops, the game that was killed all too soon, probably has the best one in terms of the Jurassic franchise. Look at this. Look at that. I like it. I like the way that the teeth look, and I like the way that the snout looks, and the colors look really good. I especially like the black around the eye and that yellow eye. Like, this one's probably my favorite in terms of the Jurassic franchise, and I really, really wish that we got to see more of this. Next up is Path of Titans, and this one's just fantastic. Look at this little fella. Like, it captures everything that we've been talking about pretty well. Like, even the whole proportions seem to match up very well, including, like, the size of the head in comparison to the size of the body. And obviously, you do get some variations in the model when you change the species. Hello, rat. You do get that. Changes things up a little bit, like the fan shape and the shape of the beak a little bit and the shape of the head. We'll go ahead and rock this one, though. That's a very good little design. Look at this fella. Look at that. It's a very good little reptile. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned it throughout the rest of the video. Of course, pterosaurs are not dinosaurs. I got to make sure I mention that at some point, because there are still some folks who do think that pterosaurs are indeed dinosaurs. But this little Rhamphorynchus is not a dinosaur. But the animations are great. It's got the tail, the shape of the head is very good, especially with the way that those teeth look and the size of the eye. They just nailed it with this one. And one very cool thing about Rhamphorynchus here is that it can swim. Look at that, which is pretty likely for the animal, as I mentioned before. It does have the proper adaptations to be able to swim, at the very least for a little bit, and that might be how it kind of collected some of its fish. So it is very cool to see it here, and then able to, like, having it, like, fly out, and then it's cool. It's very cool. I love this little fella. Look at it. It's such a good little design. Yeah, I think the Path of Titans might be my favorite depiction of the animal, because I just think that they killed it. Did a very good job at portraying this little fella, especially with the pycnofibers on it. That's another thing, like the little fluff on it, little feathers. Looks so good. And there we go. Those were the depictions of Rhamphorynchus. Not too many out there, but some very good ones nonetheless. A lot of them were fairly consistent. Not a lot has changed about Rhamphorynchus over the years. A lot of that, I'm sure we can thank the very well-preserved fossils that we have of Rhamphorynchus and the fact that we have so many fossils. Something I haven't gotten the chance to mention yet, unless I did in Path of Titans, because I'm recording that afterwards. But you know, we have like various different ages of Rhamphorynchus as well. So you get like a nice little ontogenetic chart for Rhamphorynchus, and you can see how much it's changed over time in terms of its age. Like, you know, they have reduced snouts, and then as they grow, their snouts become a little bit more elongated as they reach their adult form, and they're a little bit more like prepared for going after fish and whatnot. But all around, very good designs here. Like, a lot of those were just really cool to see. And yeah, this was a very fun episode to make. So that's pretty much all I have for this one. If you enjoyed this video and you like dinosaur or prehistoric animal related content, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you on board. Check out my Patreon or channel membership if you would like to help support me and the channel. The links for those are down below. Thank you so much to everybody who currently supports me on those. You guys are truly awesome. But until next time, thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day.